Phoney that has been released, the cousin of the molecule in some ways. So the name, the great unknown, obviously this is what we're studying, but with the molecules, right? This is like some fundamental piece of the reality that we're seeing, even though we may not understand it, or this is some means of us understanding more. But so I guess the idea of the phonicle is another version. So I introduce what I call the phonicle. Like a molecule, it's at that level, I guess, microscopically. And I call this one the fiver. It has 5 pieces, 5 functions. There's the neural nets that we use. It's a method. The maths is the aim, or the relating it to the maths of the quantum mechanics as well, and other things like with the fuel. So the root of the pulp is something that I can relate to the law of physics, these ideas that people feel that they need to abide by, and it's bad when they break it. It has some sort of negative repercussion. Not saying this is completely non-existent. The idea of clues as answers explains why this is so kind of like how we have the images of the neural nets, how they make it simpler by removing pieces. This type of negative influence of something. We've lost a piece there, something complex, I guess, but it's not. So the clues could close. And that's the same. It's pretty self-explanatory. The neural net mass obviously has what I've written underneath these fuel Listype. This would be meaning dispute, but what I have written underneath would be the motivation so much for the recreation of the at this level. So a suggestion, maybe that would be unclear in the image, so it must be self-explanatory. A suggestion that let's say would be quite unclear in the image is that the subjects. Oh, okay, so there's little models around, so it's kind of like a graph, kind of the way the subjects are placed. Forgive me for the shape. Forgive me for the shape to an extent. To a large extent, forgive me for the shape. And so I guess finally we can just talk a bit about the just before I will talk about 2 of the models, but I'll talk about now the high misnomer. That would be the great unknown. The unknown being referred to even in anything. That being the great unknown. Anyway, so this non-existent, unknown, is it seen? I guess you can't really. Can you see something and not know it? But it depends. So we can say life didn't start from molecules, or these types of concepts at this level at all. Possibly it's not to suggest where we can go to find where life was. It has started, but it has a different function. I would say it's more akin to how they use it. Obviously, there's like an epigenetic idea with cells. Obviously, things being more personally controlled in not having a life of its own per se, it not being a separate thing in itself. But obviously, when you don't understand it, what it has to be taken into account in the next trial. It's just an error, and it's kind of like cause and effect. Kind of that is that type of alternating, continuity, and just it seems pretty straightforward. It's nice that how the color is color coded, so. You see the Listype is all blue, and so the words are laid out in a way. It's kind of the shape of the Phoney as well. Fighter, what's that? Yeah, that is us. That is the first one. So no wrong. There's the other models. So everything a bit clearer. And I'll show you a bit later on comparison to the molecules. Kind of just a little explanation awareness. What you actually referring to it as points connected by lines, dots and balls, hard rigid structures, I guess, something like that. But that's still one subjective way of doing it. So we have it's kind of positioned in a way where it's like another model of the Phoney. So obviously there's like about 13 little models around. They're kind of positioned in a way with the subjects relative to kind of what I was talking about before, and then you see there's the Listype cores, and you see it's all coded, and the fuel is black, and the whole thing kind of tinted a bit black. Obviously the fuel kind of affects all the pieces, but I guess the neural net's least, so it's kind of furthest away. Kind of like this other image where we got the subjects, kind of just another way of looking at the subjects. It's kind of fitting into the way that I'm seeing the subjects here in the Phoney, I guess, just to reinforce it. I guess I don't want to explain much to this image, but obviously this is kind of like a counterpart to it to just explain or illustrate the relation of anything to subjects. I guess just change your opportunity or the interchangeability of subjects. So to aid in my relating it to keeping the Phoney somewhat parallel to the molecular theory, I'll just show how it relates to the stick and ball model of molecules now that we use. That's not always sticks and balls, but these are the two main features of the the medium of communicating this type of information. Also, I could just say is the diagram. The presentation is how we know things this fundamental. We use sticks and balls, but obviously we're not ever referring to these things, so you can consider what possibly could we be referring to. So obviously the balls are like the elements in most cases, in every case. See, one or more elements, I guess. These elements being what exactly? The various ways of more fundamental atoms or elements. We wouldn't call them elements, obviously forming together. So I'm saying that it's a alphanumeric dimensional distortion. So it's not necessarily this idea of dimension has to be a linear count to infinity or whatever is assumed. The periodic table gives a succinct enough depiction of dimensions that we have access to elements. But the bonds, on the other hand, the sticks, in a sense, are these same elements, but obviously they play a different role. Obviously, it's interesting. It's not like people try to find molecules by putting random assortments of sticks and balls together. They just look at the features that worked. So I'll call it revisionary entitled imposition, because I'm assuming at some point that all of what we will continue to make, at some point, it became to an agreement. Revisionists, after the initial discovery, we had to find something super conventional to, motivate more people to learn about it, and it's like to continue. I'm not sure if it'll be a major discovery if the scientists discover a new way of atoms bonding, or if it even is worthwhile seeing things that distinctly a new bond would only mean a new chemical. So what new types of chemicals have they found? But either way, the bond is the result of revisions on the theory, of the structure, the molecular structure, that are imposed so much as that they clearly define a position where the elements don't so much do this. Not so much making it as an entity, but in the same way, just emphasizing the distinction between the stick and the ball that is commonly used. And so obviously you have to put them together, use them together. So I wasn't really explaining the stick and ball separately, I guess, just meditating upon how to relate it to some other hypothetical assortment that isn't a stick and ball. maybe a test tube or something in a test tube rack. So we got the model that has the fuel called the potentiator transporter. Obviously the book creates potential for the other parts of the funicule. Obviously it's been transported while that is happening. That's why it's kind of a cylindrical shape, kind of a that's just the container part. I guess there's more. There is a kind of a measuring symbol on it, obviously, that is connected to the Listype, the inconspicuous creature that doesn't go inside, that stays outside. And the fuel also has the decider, which decides obviously which part goes in, obviously excluding the Listype, which is the is leading the transport. It would be the brain, the aesthetics of the situation. So the core has a life-giving, saving suggestion. It's random code, Gaussian, with the Gaussian function a bit. Obviously, derivatives of that. Or just values inspired by the equation. I wouldn't really say derivatives, and I guess that brings us to the negative consequences of symmetrical behavior of the neural nets. Obviously the function of them is being utilized in a way that is somewhat negative. You think it's symmetrical, somehow competing with the original accuracy test type of training function. But yeah, so the positive experience in real time obviously are the implications of the maths, obviously, and relating that to the base reality. So yeah, but that would be the Listype. So at every point, lots of points in the code, or at least on the neural nets, changing how it functions. It's more of, it's still it has a separate function. This adjustment, this added variable that changes just the value overall. Doesn't obviously change how the maths involved in the neural net. So with this other model, we have the fuel as a kind of encasement. It has antennae, receives, could be receiving other phonicles, receiving also the sea of information that the phonicule has emerged from. I guess you can look inside the neural nets. So obviously I made this before, just like the first one, before I decided to color code, but then also I decided to color code it. Also had to say what it is. The recurrent being the basic form kind of plants growing. I could say that just a higher form of. So the multi-layered would be the LTSM, long short-term memory, LSTM. So the emerging wand would be the actions, obviously, that cause the growing plants them. So it's kind of just this type of layered approach to bonding to name or attribute a function. So saying that the grew is a stratified group effect, kind of, obviously, of them, it being a multi-layered cell neural net idea, like layers of maths obviously that is it's consistent in that way, obviously, with the name. Repeating the same few equations and increasingly over time. So we have the Listype now. This is the soft, creamy. The center is obviously the contrast with every other piece. Obviously I can go through it. If you look at it, obviously they're none of them are really soft and creamy. A type of vulnerable aspect that is functional because it's kind of like the nourishment for the neural net parts. The Listype what alters it, like I said, and cause ephemeral mirrors. Again, it's this reference in the randomness, the anti-clockwise and clockwise spinning. Obviously, it's that 360 variation. Obviously, the cause depends on the list. Anyways, go to the Listype. Finally, is the foundation. It's kind of like the obviously dispute type list is. Or means dispute, so kind of like the encasing is kind of an illusion, is obviously and it's alluding to the Listype being able to generate some sort of force field to protect the encasing, regardless of its nature. And obviously this fuel is kind of like a deterrent from the creamy center, and the neural net ephemeral mirrors also serve this role. So it's just kind of that type of structure.